Hi, this week, not a Classics episode 3, but just my hate for Spider-Man Brand New Day. You know that feeling when you bite into a sandwich and it is technically a sandwich. It has everything, bread, filling, the structural integrity of a meal, but something feels off, like they forgot to season anything. Like the tomato is there, but it's the wrong kind of tomato, and it's been refrigerated for too long and it's mealy and it's sad. That is Brand New Day. It is a sandwich, it is technically Spider-Man, and I will spend the next however minutes of your life explaining why mealy tomatoes are a war crime. I have watched every Spider-Man film with the same deranged energy that Peter Parker throws himself off buildings, with hope, with love, and with full expectations that something will catch me. This time around, nothing did. Let us start at the beginning. Because the beginning is where Brand New Day reveals its hands practically immediately. And the hand is holding absolutely nothing. Peter Parker's entire dramatic core across comics, across games, across Raimi's trilogy, across the Amazing film, across everything is that being Spider-Man costs him something. Every single time. It cost him relationship, it cost him money, it cost him sleep, his sanity and his joy. The great Spider-Man stories are great precisely because Peter Parker is losing while Spider-Man is winning. And the tragedy is that he can never fully be both. Brand New Day looks at that foundational truth, nods politely and simply moves along and does nothing with it. Peter lives in a decently sized house, his wardrobe is a bit disheveled, his hair is mildly unwashed. The film's idea of portraying Peter's suffering is essentially, imagine if Ankur Warikoo had a bad week, and that's about it. It does not go beyond of helping us understand why Peter is so miserable, how he's so sad and pathetic in his life right now. It does not show us anything. And then there is a scene where Peter walks out of the hospital, and there is a scene where the horde of New Yorkers are cheering for him, rooting for him, making sure that he's fine, which, okay, makes sense. New York does love Spider-Man, but you need to earn that. Raimi earned it on the train. Webb earned it with the kid in Spider-Man costumes. You cannot just cut to a crowd of supporters without first giving me the quiet, somber, human moments that would make me believe that a significant chunk of Manhattan has complicated feelings about the man in a spider suit. Crowds don't mean anything without context. A standing ovation is hollow if we have not seen the performance. Now let's talk about the supporting cast, or rather lack thereof. MJ gets nothing in this film. Nothing with weight, nothing with interiority, nothing that makes her feel like a person rather than a plot device in a leather jacket. And look, I have thoughts about how MCU has handled MJ across the board, but I was willing to forgive a lot of that for this film because as per the title, it was supposed to be a brand new day. It was supposed to be a reset, a new, fresh start. Instead, what we get is functionally the same problem as Quill and Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. One half of the relationship remembers everything and the other half doesn't. And there's meant to be a ache, a hurt in that. Except Volume 3 had 3 films of own relationship history sitting behind it and still fumbled. Brand New Day manages to do it even worse, and it does it worse because of one thing: Ned. At the end of the film, the handshake, the special handshake, that triggers something in Ned. He remembers. The muscle memory of friendship breaks through whatever amnesia the plot has installed, and it's fine. It is in isolation a genuinely sweet moment. But I'm not in isolation. I'm watching a film where Mary Jane Watson, does she add Watson? We are not sure. Okay, Mary Jane, the love interest, who is a literal genre institution, the woman whose relationship with Peter Parker has been adapted, reimagined and celebrated across 60 plus years of popular culture, of pop culture, sees Peter Parker and feels nothing. While Ned, who is a lovely character, and I mean no disrespect to Ned, breaks through via a handshake. You are telling me that a love story that has transcended all superhero pairings in history, through games, through comics, doesn't even get a tremor? Not a flicker, not a single moment where something deep and half remembered pulls into her, where MJ finally feels something for Peter. That's not a narrative choice, that's negligence dressed up as a subtext because you did not want to spend time on the relationship between MJ and Spider-Man but wanted to focus on Jean Grey for some reason. Now here is where I get properly upset because this is the one thing that reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what Spider-Man is. In Brand New Day, the reason for Peter's darker behavior, his aggressiveness, his instability, his moral slippage is attributed to the arachnid DNA. The spider, something external, something biological, a contamination in hindsight. Now I needed to understand how wrong that is on a fundamental Spider-Man understanding level, because Spider-Man is not a story about a boy who gets bitten by a spider and now sometimes the spider makes him mean. No, Spider-Man is a story about a boy who got bitten by a spider and still, despite everything, every day, every impossible cost, chooses to be good. The darkness in Peter Parker's story is never meant to come from the bite, it comes from the guilt, from grief, from the specific agony of someone who knows exactly how much power he has and cannot always figure out responsible thing to do with it. The Peter B. Parker sequence in Into the Spider-Verse is, for my money, the definitive modern articulation of what a depressed, frustrated, burned out Spider-Man would look, sound and feel like. And the reason it works is because none of Peter B. Parker's problem come from the spider, it comes from Peter himself. From his failures as a husband, as an adult, as someone who couldn't figure out how to be happy. The spider gave him powers, the rest all on himself. When Brand New Day outsources Peter's darkness to the arachnid DNA, it does something catastrophic and misconstrued in nature. It removes the moral agency, it shifts the blame, and then it has the audacity to deliver the "I am both Peter Parker and Spider-Man" line as if it's earned that synthesis. It has not. You haven't let Peter own any of his choices, so there's nothing to synthesize. That line should land like a fist. Instead, it lands like a wet napkin and does not make me feel anything. Now I want to talk about villains for a moment, because Spider-Man has probably one of the greatest rogues gallery in all of comics, except for comparable to Batman for some reason. You have Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Venom, Mysterio, the Vulture, Scorpion, Rhino, Electro, Craven, sometimes even Dr. Doom, the Lizard. Each one of them is a specific kind of dark mirror to Peter. They are all in various ways about what happens when someone with great power does not use that great power well with responsibility. Brand New Day gives us Jean Grey. I will say that again slowly for the people in the back. Jean Grey in a Spider-Man film. Look, I understand crossover, I understand universes, I understand that the current era of superhero wants you to get into nostalgia, wants to create a shared connected universe, but Jean Grey as a villain is a thematic non sequitur in Spider-Man's story. The X-Men entire philosophical architecture, the metaphor of the mutant, the question whether you can trust something that is fundamentally the other or how a mutant is different from a regular person, doesn't translate well into the Spider-Man universe by default, until and unless you include arachnid DNA into it. Because Spider-Man is about earned responsibility, not inherited differences. And then the main human villain, a regular guy, which I will give you this, it works for X-Men. The Magneto tradition of extraordinary human antagonist has deep roots. It would make sense in an X-Men universe in an X-Men story. But Spider-Man's street level villains work because they exist in the same ecosystem as Peter. People who got something, did something with it and made the wrong call. On purely non-powered antagonist in a Spider-Man story requires extraordinary character writing to compensate. It does not have it here. Meanwhile, Frank Castle, the Punisher, was right there, and the Frank sequence, the one in his house, is the closest this film gets to actually feeling real. Two characters with two completely different philosophies about what justice, about what family, about what equality means, sitting in a room together and simply talking and sharing some quiet moments. That scene works because it was the only scene that feels like it understands what Peter Parker is and what he's supposed to represent to a normal person. Frank is the man Peter could become if he stopped caring about the cost, and is extraordinary in it. But they sideline him for some few gags and it is the biggest crime that this film commits. Now the Hulk is here, Yelena Belova's Black Widow is here, and I want to be fair, neither of them are bad. Hulk provides exactly one solid action sequence, and then Bruce Banner provides the intellectual scaffolding that Peter needs to understand whatever the plot is doing. Yelena is fine, they are competent inclusions, but my problem is, Spider-Man is meant to be street level. That is the entire point of Spider-Man Brand New Day and how it was advertised to us when No Way Home ended. He's not Avenger by nature. He's been made one by circumstances. And the best Spider-Man stories acknowledge the fundamental tension between the scale of the world he's been pulled into and the scale at which he's most alive. He's himself stopping a mugging. He's the most himself when the villain isn't a world ender but a person who went wrong. When a Spider-Man is trading blows with the Hulk, fighting a telepath and routing queries through an AI system, you haven't made a grounded superhero film. You have made an Avengers film where Spider-Man happened to show up. The specific texture of what makes Peter Parker, well, Peter Parker evaporates at the scale, and Brand New Day never once seems to be aware of the tension, let alone be interested in resolving it. The direction is competent, the action sequences are well choreographed, I will give credit where it's due, but the film looks bland, uninspiring, aggressively, almost impressively dull. New York City is one of the most visually rich environments on the planet. It has texture and grime and light and history baked into every corner. The Raimi films felt like New York. They had a specific visual identity because it was shot on film, I guess. A heightened gothic romanticism that made even the ugliest alley look like it meant something. When Spider-Man jumps out of that bad alley, you feel that. Even the web films, which I know is not everyone's cup of tea, had a visual personality. where it felt like a monstrosity of a city that was New York. Brand New Day looks like it was shot in an expensive sound stage with a New York filter applied in post, which would make sense because it was shot in England, but that is the flaw. And the most embarrassing part is that the set photos look more real than the actual film, and that says a lot about what this movie is going for. So where does this leave us? Brand New Day, in the most aggressively exhausted way possible, is a fine watch. It does not fail catastrophically. It does not test your intelligence. It is assembled competently from recognizable parts by people who clearly care about making a product. But it is not a Spider-Man film. Not really. Not in the ways that count. It doesn't understand Peter's misery. It wastes MJ and fumbles the one emotional note it was building and should have built up towards. It blames Spider for what should be Peter Parker's own soul. It brings in the wrong villains and sidelines the right ones. It scales up when it should scale down. And it looks like an expensive nothing burger. The title promises a brand new day. What it gave me was simply the next day. And for a character whose entire mythology is built on the idea that with great power comes great responsibility, the responsibility to mean something, to do good, this might be the unkindest cut of all. My Spider-Man movie rankings for all those who want to fight me in the comments are as follows. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, Far From Home, Brand New Day, No Way Home, Homecoming, Spider-Man 1, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, 11 out of 10 flicks, and I will die on that hill because the hill has a really nice view, unlike Brand New Day. I am Vyom Pandya, this is Vyom Vertigo. These were my thoughts on Brand New Day. Share your thoughts down below and I'll see you next week.